And to our next topic, there's going to be some. The next couple of topics are kind of short, and then hopefully kind of we're going to be able to go through it really really quickly. And the first one is introducing a new syntax for test statements. Do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
do you want me to show it first?
Show it first.
Okay. So let's do this.
Oh my God, it's very small.
So it's going here. Okay, you can look. You can look here. By the way,
it's still
small. Okay,
yeah.
Let's do this. Let's do this. Get this out of our hair. And this.
Yeah, and
so
on the console also increase.
I'm gonna take this out. Okay, great. And why am I in the console? I should be here toggling. Oh no, a mistake. Sorry. I want to toggle
dark
mode. Yeah, awesome, great. So what we have here on the screen, we have VS Code running our extension. On the right, we have our console, basically the simulator. And the new syntax is this one. This is my new test name. I'm going to save this. Once I save this, we have this specific test here. Basically what it does, I'm instantiating in pre-flight, I'm instantiating a new cloud bucket. And then I'm running the pre-flight API for adding an object that happens during deployment, basically. And simple file text equals hello. We can go through this bucket and actually see that this file text exists with the word hello here, as you can see. And then the test itself, this is the new syntax. So we used to have kind of the new cloud function as syntax, and now this is a syntax that runs the test. And I'm going to run it from here. I can actually run it from this handler. I can just go to this handler and invoke this to make sure that it works. You can also change the test for a second and to fail and run it again. And now, as you can see, it failed. And I can also run this with the wing test app.w command that runs the test. So and it's going to work, as you can see, the test passes. But I can also run this on the cloud if I'm going to do wing test and target tf.aws. That's going to also
be able to deploy it and run it on.
Yeah, it's going to take some time. We can run it as we do this and hope that it's going to work. I haven't tested it. Let me see. Let's see. But do you want to talk a little bit about that syntax?
Yeah, there's a
go here.
There's a note here from Hack and Soul that I like. Yeah, so we debated whether that's the right thing to do or not, and I think it's really 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 interesting. I think like having first class support for testing in the language, to me it feels like all modern programming languages should have first class support for testing. Now, I have never used, I've never developed anything that didn't need testing, right? Like it's the bread and butter of like building quality software. And most programming languages have frameworks for testing, like Jest and Vitess and JavaScript and JUnit, and like there's always, also there's always like a very prevalent, like like one that's very popular, and like obviously in the JavaScript ecosystem, every 4 weeks there is someone that's very popular. But I think there's a lot of value when there's such things to like bake them into the language, bake them into the tool chain, bake them into the console that we have. You haven't shown that, but basically every test here in the console has like, you have like a test pane and you can run all of them. And in Wing we also have the support for like running each test in isolation. And so it really creates all the environment for each test, and it does that for the cloud. It does that locally. So it's an end-to-end story, right? Like it's integrating the language, the compiler, the deployment, the development tools, which is why I think it needs to be baked into the language, and it needs to be baked into this tool chain. And so because it's baked into the tool chain, I feel it makes total sense that it's also baked into the language, right? Like there's a keyword for it, and it really helps, I feel, create some standards in the ecosystem, right? Like we're creating an ecosystem, and to me, it's always about kind of like realizing, like thinking, what are the foundations of the ecosystem? What are the things that we want to put at the bottom of this ecosystem, so that the stuff that grows above it is healthy. And I know that you agree that testing is like
Yeah, I come from a test-driven development background. That's my best. I mean, that's how I like to write my code, and I think that I think in a way, I think there's problems with tests. I think the tests, a lot of time tests, for especially when you're doing backend stuff with that requires a lot of mocking. There's a lot of what's also called as test-induced damage. There's damage from test to the actual design because there's a lot of mocking going around, and the test basically you can't really understand what you're testing in a way. And I think that the fact that we'll test, we can be able to test the bucket and the API gateway without mocking them, and then running the same tests on the cloud. I think that's awesome. And I haven't got used to this syntax, to be honest. I need to play with it, but
yeah, I think one thing that we talked about that we might change is that it needs to be an in-flight. There needs to be some kind of an in-flight modifier here, because the code that runs inside the test is basically in-flight code.
Right.
So I think that what we will do eventually is going to be like an in-flight test, right? Like we
Oh,
have
like
in-flight, yeah, an in-flight modifier at the beginning.
Got it. Interesting.
Which basically, same as we have for classes, same as we have for functions. And so we'll have in-flight tests, and we'll also have pre-flight tests, so you can like test stuff in the pre-flight stage. You can make assertions about your infrastructure, right? Like not just interactions.
Right. Makes sense. Made a lot of sense. So this is the in-flight the tests, and we're moving into cloud services. That's our next topic.